you may be overlooking some of the earliest signals of dementia, sometimes years before obvious memory loss begins. And by the time we reach sign number 10, if it happens repeatedly, it may be time to consider getting checked. One important thing to remember is that dementia is not just about forgetting things. It can also affect language, judgment, emotions, and even the way you perform everyday tasks that once felt completely natural. The first possible sign is a gradual decline in your sense of smell. This is not the temporary loss you might experience when you have a cold or a blocked nose. Instead, you may notice that familiar foods smell weaker, perfumes seem faint, or you need to bring something much closer to recognize its scent. Why does this matter? Your sense of smell is closely connected to areas of the brain responsible for memory and recognition. When the ability to distinguish scents slowly declines over time, it can sometimes be an early signal, especially if other subtle changes in daily life begin appearing as well. This does not mean you should panic. Instead, simply take note of when the change began. Ask yourself whether it has gradually worsened, and whether any sinus or nasal conditions could explain it. If the change lasts for months and continues to progress, it may be worth mentioning during a routine health check. Another sign can be long-term disruption of sleep. You may find it difficult to fall asleep, wake up repeatedly during the night, or sleep many hours but still feel exhausted in the morning. Deep sleep is when the brain performs essential maintenance. During this stage, it clears metabolic waste and restores neural balance. When sleep becomes fragmented over long periods, these processes become less effective. This can create a cycle. Poor sleep reduces concentration. Reduced concentration increases stress and anxiety. And that stress often leads to even worse sleep. If sleep problems last for a few weeks during stressful times, that can be understandable. But if poor sleep continues for months, especially in older adults, it may be a signal that brain health deserves closer attention. A helpful step is to track sleep for 1 or 2 weeks. Record when you go to bed, how often you wake up during the night, and how tired you feel during the day. Having this information can make it easier for doctors to evaluate what might be happening. A third sign involves subtle changes in fine motor skills. Small, precise movements may become slightly more difficult. You might notice your handwriting becoming smaller or shakier. Buttoning clothes may take longer. You may tap the wrong place on your phone more often, or drop objects more frequently. The key word here is change over time. If you compare older notes or handwriting with what you write today and see that it has gradually become harder to read, or if tasks that once felt automatic now require more effort, it may be worth paying attention. This does not automatically mean there is a serious condition, but it can be a reasonable reason to check neurological and motor function, especially if these changes appear together with balance problems or slower reflexes. Another possible signal is difficulty managing tasks that involve several steps. You may previously have been able to cook dinner, keep track of time, and talk with family at the same time. Now, even a simple interruption might cause you to lose track of what you were doing. You may find it harder to follow a familiar recipe, organize bills, or plan a small trip that once felt easy. The difference between normal forgetfulness and something more concerning often comes down to this question. Can you calmly return to the task and reconnect the steps yourself? Or do you frequently become stuck and need someone else to guide you through it again? If situations like this start happening repeatedly, especially in middle-aged or older adults, they may deserve early evaluation. Another sign can involve changes in the way you walk. This is not simply walking slower because of knee pain. Instead, you might trip more often on flat surfaces, take shorter steps, turn more slowly, or feel your balance becoming less stable over time. Many people assume this is simply part of aging. However, changes in movement sometimes appear before noticeable memory changes. One simple observation is to ask yourself whether you can still walk briskly and stop smoothly as before. When stepping off a curb or stair, do you find yourself looking down at your feet more often than you used to? If so, avoid jumping to conclusions. Instead, treat this as a signal worth noting when you receive a comprehensive health evaluation that includes vision, balance, neurological function, and medication review. Another subtle sign can be withdrawing from activities you once enjoyed. Perhaps you previously enjoyed meeting friends for coffee, playing games, gardening, or watching favorite shows. Now you may feel less motivated. Postpone activities more often, or avoid social interactions. This can sometimes resemble depression. However, if it appears alongside changes in attention, language, or judgment, it may deserve closer attention. An important question to ask is whether this behavior feels very different from your previous personality, and how long the change has lasted. It may also help to ask family members or close friends whether they have noticed differences, because sometimes people around us recognize changes before we do. Another possible signal involves visual and spatial awareness. Your eyes may still be healthy, yet your brain may have more difficulty interpreting visual information. You might bump into table corners, misjudge distances while pouring liquids, struggle more when reversing a car, or feel that text looks confusing, even though your vision prescription has barely changed. If you have already changed glasses or had eye treatment but still struggle with judging distance or space, it may raise an important question. The issue might not only involve the eyes, but how the brain processes visual information. In those situations, repeatedly changing glasses may not solve the problem. A more complete evaluation may be helpful. Another sign can be difficulty following conversations. You may hear someone speaking but find it difficult to connect the pieces of the story. You might forget who someone is referring to, or begin speaking and suddenly lose track of what you intended to say. Everyone becomes distracted sometimes. But if this happens frequently, even when you are well rested and not particularly stressed, it may be worth noticing. A simple way to reflect on this is to think about whether you can still follow a television show or film with a complex storyline as easily as before. Or do you increasingly choose simpler content because it feels easier to keep up with? Another possible change is slower mental processing. You may feel that your reactions while driving are slower than before. Pause for several seconds when something unexpected happens, or take longer to make small, everyday decisions. A certain amount of slowing can occur with age, but if the change feels significant and has appeared within the past few years, it may deserve attention. The most important question is whether this slower processing affects safety. For example, when crossing the street, cooking, or responding quickly to something unexpected. If it does, discussing it with a doctor can be an important step. Now we come to sign number 10, one that many experts consider important to check early if it happens repeatedly. This is becoming lost or confused in familiar places. You might take the wrong route home, leave through the wrong exit in a shopping area you know well, or suddenly feel unsure about where you are or where you were going. You might also confuse dates or appointment times. Even after someone reminds you, the situation may still feel unclear. If this happens more than once, especially together with personality changes, social withdrawal, or difficulty completing familiar tasks, it may be wise not to wait until memory problems become severe. Early evaluation can provide more options and better guidance. Another sign is when tasks you have done for years suddenly feel confusing. You might cook a familiar meal but need to check every step. You may prepare tea or coffee and forget what you have already added. Even shopping at a familiar supermarket may feel disorienting. You can still complete the task, but it requires much more mental effort and mistakes happen more easily. The important difference here is that this is not simply a brief moment of forgetfulness. Instead, it is a gradual loss of the automatic habits you once relied on. If family members notice these changes, writing down specific examples can be helpful. Recording what happened and when it happened can provide valuable information during a medical evaluation. Another signal can be placing objects in unusual locations. This goes beyond occasionally misplacing keys. For example, a wallet might appear in the kitchen cabinet, a phone might end up in the bathroom, or you might store something somewhere and later have no idea how it got there. What makes this sign different is that you cannot retrace your own logic. You cannot mentally reconstruct the steps that led to the object being there. If this behavior begins appearing together with several other signs mentioned earlier, it deserves careful attention. The most important thing to remember is that none of these signs alone is a diagnosis. They can have many different causes, including poor sleep, stress, metabolic conditions, medication side effects, or neurological issues. However, if several of these signs begin appearing together and gradually increase over time, it may be wise to seek evaluation earlier rather than waiting until memory loss becomes obvious. Early detection can provide more opportunities to adjust lifestyle habits, manage underlying health conditions, and receive appropriate guidance. If you found this information helpful, Consider sharing it with family members or friends, especially older loved ones who may benefit from recognizing these signals early. And if you would like, you can also let me know which of these signs surprised you the most.